Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the May 19th, 2020 meeting, Zoom Internet meeting of the Orange Town Plan and Zoning Commission. Let me start by introducing those in attendance. We have Tammy Trantalis, zoning administrative assistant, Jack Demirjian, zoning enforcement officer, commissioners Kevin Cornell, Paul Kaplan, Tom Tarenti, and myself, Ozzie Parenti. Unfortunately, Judy Smith will not be with us tonight. She had a death in the family. Her sister passed away yesterday, so she's off tonight. And let's see, we have who else in attendance here? Michael Dion and Matthew Bruton. Right. Okay. And you gentlemen are here on the site plan application? Okay.
Correct.
Which we'll get to shortly. So I think that covers the introductions, right, Tammy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yes.
All right. First, then the first item on our agenda this evening is the minutes
Oh, look at that.
from the April 21, 2020 meeting. And by the way, did anybody get hurt trying to pick up their packages at the town hall?
Yeah, a heads up would have been nice, Tam.
Is everybody all right?
I didn't know. I knew better than to
I've
give a
been
heads
lifting.
up.
I've been preparing my whole life to pick up that package.
See, Paul, the lawyers always take it on the chin for too much papers, but it's really the engineers, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
All right. So anyway, the April 21, 2020 meeting minutes, has everyone had a chance to look through those?
Yes.
Yeah.
To me, they were perfect. I have no comments at all to make on
Nice.
them.
Great.
Anybody
Thank
else? Does anybody have any comments? Kevin?
Never heard of such a thing.
I know. I'm not going to say approved. I'm just going to say perfect.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, good. No, I had no comment.
All right, then. Absent any comments or further discussion, is someone prepared to make a motion that we approve the minutes?
I'll move that we approve the Orange Zoning Commission minutes of the April 21st, 2020 Zoom meeting.
Okay, and do we have a second?
Second, us.
Seconded by Commissioner Tarenti. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, it's unanimous. All right. Next item on our agenda is old business. Does anyone have anything under that topic that they wish to bring up this evening?
No.
Jack, I noticed that there was something in our package from Langen Engineering.
Mhm.
It was an inspection report on 197 Indian River Road. Anything significant on that, or?
Correct. No, they've still been moving dirt around, working on the third retaining wall in the rear of the property. But I just figured I'd give you one of the regular updates that I get usually once or twice a week from Langen. With obviously everything that you see with the pictures, with the updates, because they're very good about it. Honestly, like I said, maybe two, even three a week, depending on what they're doing. So I just figured
Yeah. Well, that's good. So you're satisfied that everything's going the way it's supposed to be going there? Hello? I think we lost
Seems to be having
Jack.
a little problem.
Sounds like
with
he's
the audio.
satisfied.
What's that?
Sounds like he's satisfied.
I guess so.
I don't,
He's not going to be of much help for the rest of the meeting if his picture stays like that.
I will give him a call, guys. Sorry about that.
All right, let's see if we can get Jack back to us. But
Hi, everyone. How are you?
hey,
Sorry
Jack,
about that.
we have
hey,
no picture of Jack, just his voice, then, right?
Jack
Yeah,
called
just-
in.
just-
We're having issues.
Just me. I don't really know what happened, but apparently my Wi-Fi decided to stop working. So apparently this is what I'm reduced to.
right.
Um,
All right,
yeah,
so
so
anyway,
sorry about that again.
that's okay. Picking up where we left off, we're on old business, and I just mentioned that inspection report from Langen. Sounds like you're having no trouble with the progress of that.
Right, right.
Okay. Is there anything else? Anybody else have a question for Jack under old business?
No.
Or anything else they wish to bring up at this point? Okay, I mean, if not, we'll move on to new business. Does anyone wish to bring up any topic for discussion under that, under new business?
So Jack had circulated an email to the board regarding something from the state requesting that we review outdoor dining regulations.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up too.
Yeah, it was a new executive order, 7MM, referring to outdoor dining regulations. Essentially, a lot of them being null and void, and for us to make a new streamlined process for restaurants to be able to hand in a permit and essentially their turnover rate be a lot higher. So what we did, and pretty much every other town in the state had to do so as well, was make up a new form that was essentially a temporary outdoor dining permit, or application, I should say. And it included what the new executive order is requiring of them, which is a roughly drawn plot plan. We're asking them to do it to scale and include a certain, number of features on the site that they're looking to put the outdoor dining. Obviously, so we can clear it for safety and everything, for the fire marshal and police department and building, of course. So we put that on Viewpoint, myself making the application, getting it checked by the building inspector, the sanitarian, Jamie at the fire station. I got it cleared with Vin Marino for, covering any legal bases or anything like that. And we essentially got it up yesterday, I believe, and for all restaurants to fill out and submit applications for.
So it is titled temporary, and the idea is that while these restrictions are in place, and then it will just naturally terminate, or what's the sequence?
Yeah, so the wording in the form was until Executive Order 7MM is terminated and no longer active, or until 50% of indoor dining capacity is allowed again. That was included in the permit, or in the application.
In the executive order?
No, in our application, we included, so there could be no discrepancy, that once that executive order is no longer active, that temporary dining permit would also be null and void. Or if the state of Connecticut has started to allow 50% or more max capacity inside the building. So either or will terminate that permit.
I mean, essentially, in Orange to for a restaurant to get an outdoor dining permit requires a special permit application. So
correct, and by this executive order, that is null and void.
Right, and that's essentially what the executive order does. It takes it out of the hands, outdoor dining out of the hands of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and puts it in the hands of the zoning enforcement officer to be handled administratively.
Correct.
And there are other things. I don't know. I think everyone got a copy of the executive order. Yeah. But there, one of our requirements, and I guess most towns have the same requirement, and that is for an engineered drawing, showing the location and the details regarding the outdoor dining, and that is taken away by the executive order. And again, it's you still have to submit a plan, but it doesn't have to be an engineered drawing of any kind, So, drawn to scale, or mostly to scale, and basically sufficient, to show what the applicant intends to do. And the other thing, on the usual special permit application, we would be guided by special standards for outdoor restaurant seating that we have in our regs, 383, 143.4. So, my advice to Jack on it, and maybe anybody else could give further advice or concur or whatever, but I think Jack, in deciding the applications that are submitted to him, he can still be guided by the requirements laid out in our special standards. So, for example,
Correct.
I think probably the biggest thing that we would be worried about is contemplates that the outdoor dining.
I joined back in this video. Sorry.
The outdoor dining be out on the sidewalk, in the parking area, so to me, probably the biggest issue is to make sure that seating area, that outdoor seating area, is adequately protected from vehicular traffic. That's what our special standards so provide. And I don't think there's any reason why Jack can't require that going forward with respect to any application that he's presented with.
Mhm. And of course, the fire department and police department have to sign off well before I do. So it has to be okay to their standards and adequately shown on the plan that safety is obviously prioritized.
Right. So there's, nothing, any application is directed to Jack and up to him to approve or not administratively. So it really takes the commission out of play on any of those applications.
And Jack, did I understand that the executive order puts a term limit on? In other words, when the executive order terminates, does the right for that any approval during that time period also terminate, or is that a permanent?
I believe it does, yes, but we also, just in case, because I sent it to Vinny to make sure that there was a way that we could terminate it ourselves.
Right.
So in the permit, or in the application, I should say, there are clauses saying that if 50% capacity is allowed again, or Executive Order 7MM, which this permit was created under, gets terminated, so as does any permit granted during that time.
Okay. Thank you.
I think, though, what you're asking, Paul, is does eventually, does the temporary approval, and by definition, if it's temporary, it terminates at some point, and the restaurant owner has to come to the commission with a special permit application, the way we
As they would have before,
Mhm.
fine.
Correct. And I'm looking in it right now, seeing if there's any exact verbiage for when it would cease to be in effect, but I don't think they're thinking that far right now.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'd be surprised if at some point it doesn't revert back to the regulations as they exist. And, with any application for outdoor dining to, require a special permit application. But we can check that. I mean, Jack, you can look into that and maybe be prepared to comment on that next meeting, but.
Sure can.
But yeah, it's glad you brought that up, Kevin. I wanted to mention that as well. All right, is there anything beside the governor's executive order that we want to talk about under new business?
No.
Okay. Then item number 4 on our agenda is a report of the zoning enforcement officer. Jack, do you want to bring us up to date on a few things, or?
Yeah, I got a couple things for you. So this week was mostly that outdoor dining permit. We've been really, really hectic, slammed trying to finalize that and get everything right on it to make sure that all the applicants had a central document in front of them, not only to satisfy my terms, but fire, building, sanitarian, everything in between. So we've all been, really putting a lot of time towards that.
You know, and
While-
by the way, you know, in the course of considering these applications, if you have questions and you want to run something by one of us,
Oh, yeah,
feel free
Absolutely.
to, feel free to call.
yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. I'll be sure to do it. While in communication with Vin Marino about the outdoor dining, he did bring up to me that Paul was working on wordage to put in to the regulations for Airbnbs.
Right.
I'll try to see where he left off with that, and I think Vinny might have sent me something where Paul was considering of presenting to you guys. So I'll pick up where he left off and try to have something for you next meeting on Airbnbs.
Yeah, we may even make that a separate item on our agenda
Okay.
at some point to make a decision on it or consider something.
Okay. Yeah. When I finalize it a
Yeah.
little more, I'll make sure that we do that. The legal notice for the zone change at 48 Boston Post Road that went into effect on May 8th. So just figured I'd bring that up because that deadline did hit. FedEx 197 Indian River, Numet, very, very good at communicating with me. They send me things multiple times a week. Everything's going to plan. You know, other than that, Corona's kind of taken over, but we've certainly been staying busy. A lot of pools, a lot of sheds, people, doing things around the house. But other than that, I'd say that's it.
All right, good. Anything in that, you gave us some, copies of cease and desist orders and
Most of those I met with.
those under control?
Yeah, absolutely. Got a couple other anti-blight forms or letters, I think yesterday and today. Just small things, but everything's under control.
All right. And I see you notified you gave the required notifications to the regional planning agencies
Correct.
with respect to our consideration of changing the TOD,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
The zoning. Okay. All right, any questions for Jack on any issues? No? All right, good, Jack. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, then. The next items on our agenda are the two site plan applications. I imagine can we take these together? The
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt's talking about both of them.
sort of
So.
one project. I'll just read what's on the agenda. Site plan application, architectural standard supplement submitted by Orange Post Associates for property known as 48 Boston Post Road. The existing building will mostly remain with reconfiguration to the parking layout, removal of asphalt, slight alterations to existing structures, and resurfacing. Primary use of warehouse storage and shipping goods. And then the second site plan application related is the architectural standard supplement submitted by True Boston Post Road Associates LLC and R&R Orange Ventures LLC for property known as 2 Boston Post Road to alter existing lighting, utilities, and landscaping of property, primary use of off-street parking and vehicle storage. So those are the two items. And the applicant I see is present. And if you would, maybe you could walk us through the applications.
Absolutely. So just for the record for everybody, my name is Matthew Bruton. I'm an engineer from BL Companies. With me today are coworkers Mike Dion, our traffic engineer from BL, and Todd Johnson, the project architect. I have permission to share my screen. I think it'll be easier. Let's see. Okay, perfect. All right, so I'll walk you through these projects. Obviously, we have two distinct projects. One is at 48 Boston Post Road. One is at 2 Boston Post Road. Obviously, they're two separate parcels. They'll remain two separate parcels The goal obviously is to obtain an approval from you guys tonight so we can attract a warehouse distribution user to these historically vacant buildings. So I will talk about 48 first, and then I'll move over to 2 Boston Post Road. So what I have here up on the screen for context, as I'm sure you guys are all familiar with, is a satellite view of the area in question. So 48 Boston Post Road is highlighted here. There's access to Boston Post Road, where my hand is now, and also to Carlson Road, which is a secondary street to the side. Obviously, this is a small block separation between the 2 exits. In general, this is a 15-acre parcel, and it's the former Lowe's facility. If you guys remember, this was a C1 zone that was recently rezoned to light industrial. It abuts light industrial, where my hand is in general over here. Also C1 along this strip. And then the rear abutter is the town of West Haven. There is an existing stormwater management system on site, existing utilities, site lighting and landscaping, and also an interconnection between these 2 parcels, kind of where my hand and cursor are floating right now. So I'm going to pull up our site plans. So proposed conditions, obviously the driveways are to remain. This is zoomed in strictly on the Lowe's facility. So the Boston Post Road connection is up here, and the Carlson Road connection is down here. As mentioned by our chairman's description of our application, overall the building will be to remain in place. There will be some minor modifications to that. There is, if you guys are familiar with the facility, there is a garden center, outdoor pad, and some light structures in this area. Those are proposed to be demolished to make room for a new loading dock. I'm going to zoom in here just so you guys can see it. The existing loading dock was in this facility here that is proposed to be filled in and relocated. Obviously, we see this as a benefit because it gives more capacity, and it also pushes it further away from the existing residential users in West Haven. I'd also like to point out that there is an existing retaining wall that starts here, and it travels all the way around the back, and it ends over here. We are not proposing to, we are proposing to modify the parking lot with restriping and landscaped islands. We're not proposing to go any further than the existing pavement limits are there today. And that is particularly the case in the rear with this retaining wall. So nothing will change in the rear here, nor in this area, which is currently a landscaped area. From the prior development of Lowe's, there is a conservation easement across the rear here as well. So we're adhering to that.
Matthew, so the changes you described, mostly in that garden center area, those are the only changes to the footprint of the building?
So that is the one change. The other change is that there is going to be a canopy added along the front facade. I'm going to trace it here now so you can see. There'll be a canopy placed along the facade here. The intention of this facade is obviously to have parcel delivery and loading that occurs along the front of this building to happen under cover. I'm going to change the color real quick here. That would occur through this drive aisle here under the building, and then they'd be free to rejoin the drive aisle and exit out to Boston Post Road. So between the canopy addition and the demo and conversion of the loading dock, those are the 2 building modifications that we're proposing for this Lowe's facility.
Okay.
Let's see. In general, as I mentioned, let me just clear some of these things. We are just proposing to restripe and reconfigure the parking lot to attract this type of user. As I mentioned before, We're not extending any pavement limits. We're trying to just maximize, changing from a retail use to a warehouse use. So in general, what we have shown here is maintaining the driveway connections in these 3 points. What we would call standard parking spaces are all along the side and rear of the building. We have some van and truck spaces along the front of the building. Obviously some line haul, tractor trailers to the side, and a little parking over here as well. In discussion with Jack and some of the town departments, obviously you guys are aware that there is full circulation around the entire building. We're maintaining that. What we are adding though is a gate with a Knox box over here. We obviously want to be safety conscious, and with people coming into this entrance from Carlson Road that not only would use this facility, but also Guitar Center and Edge Fitness, we want to make sure with the truck traffic here and potential employee traffic here that we're limiting that kind of cross traffic. So at the recommendation of the fire department, we're putting a gate here with a Knox box. We are also proposing to not only when we shift the loading area from here to here, we're also proposing to put a sound barrier wall 20 feet high. Now, obviously, we're being conscious to the residential users in West Haven. So with the existing landscape buffer here, the retaining wall and fence here, and then another 20-foot wall here, and moving the loading back, we think with all those steps, this should mitigate any potential noise and nuisance that could be caused by a new tenant moving in. So it should be a positive benefit to the neighborhood.
Matthew, how far between that area and the residential people over in West Haven?
So if you can see here on Google, the property line, is roughly where my hand is.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's single family homes to the rear. So right now the back of the building, as you can see here, is 186 feet.
That's what I'm asking. Okay.
Plus more. So we're in the neck of the woods of almost 275, 300 feet away from the property line.
The regs require how much from a residential zone?
That is a good question.
I thought I saw it in your application. Here it is. You have it required 50 feet. Setback from residence district line, 50 feet, provided 186.1. That must be it.
Right, 186.1, yes. Yeah, so we have more than enough of room. And obviously, again, just reiterating, we're not changing what was existing in terms of development line. We're staying within that retaining wall line. So we think this is all to the benefit of everybody by moving this further into our development and further away from residential. Just to continue, obviously we're modifying some of the landscaped islands. With that, we'll be tweaking the stormwater management system. Overall, the stormwater management system, I'll just jump back to Google Earth. This is flows into this stormwater management basin that's along Boston Post Road, where it's treated and detained, and then eventually discharges to Boston Post Road system. We are reducing impervious coverage on the site overall. So that's obviously a benefit to discharge and also to water quality. We're mitigating peak flows, we're maintaining drainage patterns, and we're obviously providing water quality features as well. On 48 Boston Post Road, obviously there's existing utilities. Those are all to remain. The only services that would be upgraded are going to be the the fire department connection. The fire marshal requested, because of the canopy, that we add a remote fire department connection to the landscaped island here, which we have done so. And we are also upgrading the domestic service from a 2-inch line to a 4-inch line. All other services are to remain: electric, sanitary, gas, and fire protection. Obviously, with the change in configuration of the parking lot, let me just skip forward to a couple of plans here. We are proposing new landscaping as we're rejiggering the parking lot. So any area that is not paved will receive landscape treatment, obviously to comply with your regulations and also to be aesthetically pleasing. So as you can see, we have a variety of trees and shrubs and grasses interspersed around the new landscape islands that we are creating.
How many
with
spots,
that,
Matt?
Oh, it's actually a pretty significant reduction. Go back here. Let me see if I can give you the exact number. So we're somewhere in the, just over 300 range. Let me see if I have the number here quickly. If I don't have it off the top of my head, I can track down.
I'm looking
I'm
for.
sorry, Paul, what did you
I
ask?
asked how many spots are going to be, how many they're losing, so to speak.
Parking spots.
Yeah.
Well, in the application, it shows
I'm looking.
76 required spaces and that they're providing 216.
Okay, so it's immaterial. Okay, don't worry, Matt. Keep going.
Yeah, we are complying with what is required. But overall, it is a reduction. Paul, I can circle back with that number if you need it.
No.
Also, I'd want to point out with the new landscape layout, we're obviously providing a photometric plan to provide safety and security for the site. As you guys, I'm sure, have visited this parcel. Not only would any visitors to this site, we want to make sure are safe, but Carlson Road is also kind of a cut through to the facility here as well. So we want to make sure that it's adequately lit, but not providing a nuisance. So we do have a photometric plan showing, no wash off the property, especially in the rear as well. These would be LED dark sky compliant fixtures. Obviously, that could be tweaked with shields if anything after installation does come up. And then I'll just back up 1 second to our erosion control plans. Obviously, during construction, there'll be disturbed earth. We want to make sure that we're protecting adjacent property owners and the stormwater management system. So we have provided a sedimentation and erosion control plan and narrative, which is on the second page here. This depicts things that will happen during construction until the site is stabilized with final pavement and landscaping. So we have items like a construction entrance, silt sacks, silt fence, soil stockpile areas, concrete wash pits that the construction crew should follow to protect, abutters in your system until final stabilization has occurred. And then I'm going to just jump to the back here. So we did provide some exterior elevations. If you want us to get into it, I can obviously had Todd Johnson jump in and kind of describe what we have shown on the plans here. But in general, obviously, two of the facades are not changing. This would be the loading dock area, and obviously this would be the canopy area along the facade. That's kind of a quick high-level overview. I don't know if you guys want to ask questions now or want me to move on to 2, and then
Let me ask you, can you be clear on what you expect the use of the property to be? I mean, what exactly do you
absolutely
anticipate here? Just, and
Yep.
I asked the question because I have every reason to believe that it's a permitted use in the light industrial zone. But I just want to make
Yep.
sure we're clear on what that use entails or what you're contemplating.
Absolutely, yeah. Yep. So the intention would for 48 Boston Post Road to be a warehouse distribution facility, and for 2 Boston Post Road, obviously separate parcel, which is zoned as a not light industrial. That would be strictly for an off-site parking facility related to this facility. There would be no storage or anything on that parcel. So 48 would be, warehouse and delivery. 2 Boston Post Road would be parking.
So I read somewhere, I guess it was in the traffic study, that basically this is the operation you're looking. Do you have a tenant, or you're working on getting a tenant?
So the landowners, 2 separate landowners, one for 48 and one for 2, are in discussion with tenants. They have some interested parties. There is one that is really interested that we're currently under a non-disclosure agreement with, so I can't share the exact name. But they have people that are very interested in these parcels. Should this approval, move forward.
My lights broke.
No problem.
Sorry.
So all of the users that are being talked to are warehouse distribution in nature.
So from what I read in the traffic study, it described this facility as being like the last, I don't know, was it 50 miles or last 100 miles of a delivery?
Yeah, right. So the intention of the facility would be a distribution radius of approximately 60 minutes. So depending on if the end result is in a person's home or a business, and depending on how they get there, whether it's highway or street, it's about a 60-minute radius from this location.
So goods would arrive from California on a tractor trailer to this facility.
Correct.
And then they
Correct.
would go with smaller trucks, I presume.
Correct. Yep. So I can have Mike get into more details if you want, but in general, there should be expecting, I believe, Mike, 6 to 10 18-wheeler tractor trailer trucks a day. So not a large amount. And then these would be transferred, sorted, and placed into vans. As you've seen vans of, Mercedes Sprinters, Ford has some vans that are smaller in size that would be doing the last mile delivery to your home or business in the area.
All right.
So if you can see, yeah, go ahead.
No, anything not moving out immediately goes in the warehouse.
Correct. Anything that is not being distributed immediately would be stored on site, just in this facility, not in 2 Boston Post Road.
Right.
With
And
foot parking spaces would take like a box truck. So like
Right.
a UPS size truck,
Right. Yeah. I was moving to that next. Yeah. So if you've noticed, we obviously have extra large parking spaces. So this is 27 feet wide by 11 feet, 27 feet long by 11 feet wide. That is intended to accommodate the delivery vans. The other spaces along the side and the rear are your standard spaces that are 20 feet deep and I believe 9 to 10 feet wide. So that's overall why we have a reduction in parking, because we have some oversized parking spaces here for delivery vans.
Well, go ahead, Kevin.
No. Well, we can wait until they're finished and then we'll do all that. Why don't we let them finish their presentation?
Sure.
Sorry.
Okay, so would you like me to talk about 2 Boston Post Road? Because in general, our traffic engineers narrative will be taking this project as a whole, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yes, please
Let me
show general plan for 2 Boston Post Road.
Okay, perfect. So I'll bring back Google Earth. So 2 Boston Post Road is circling by my cursor here. There's access to Boston Post Road. There's also a limited access driveway here to Malloy Road. And then obviously pointing out again, this interconnection behind Guitar Center and between 48 and 2, that would also remain. This is a 13-acre parcel. It's a former Sam's Club. The building with the large roof is obviously Sam's Club. And there was previously outdoor fueling canopy associated with that use that has been removed. This is zoned C2, which is your commercial zone, and it abuts obviously the new light industrial zone next door, C1, and then obviously West Haven on 2 sides. There again, with this facility, there's existing stormwater management system, utility, site lighting, and landscaping, and has been vacant for some time as well. Let's see. Okay. So as you see on the screen here, the existing building is to remain. We are also maintaining the driveway connection to 48 Boston Post Road and also Boston Post Road here as well. I'm going to zoom in here. Malloy is right now a limited access driveway. It's right in and right out. There's also no trucks allowed on this road as it is abutting a lot of residential users. The goal of this driveway is to close it. We're proposing a gate with a Knox box here to limit access from this. In consultation with the fire marshal, he didn't want us to close it off completely because in instances where there may be a car fire in the parking lot, West Haven has responded, being adjacent, and he knows that they do use this entrance, and he wanted to make sure access was maintained for that. So there should be no operations from any future business through this driveway, but the access will be maintained for emergency services.
How do they access? I mean, I understand that it'll be limited access. How do they access it? It'll be by
So
car?
it's going to be a gate. It'll be a gate with a Knox box. So the fire
Is it-
department will have the key.
Got it. Okay.
Yep. Let me just zoom out again. So obviously the structure that you see here I'll just give it a quick trace. This structure will remain. There will be two new openings created here and here. The intention of this is to allow additional parking to happen interior to the building. So this would be an entrance and exit. Everything else about the building will remain. So this is even less of a modification to the prior application. We are also doing exterior upgrades to maximize parking based on the dimensions we just discussed. So obviously, we're trying to maximize this for the 11 by 27. Let me just go to this next page so you can see dimensions. So 11 by 27. So there's a minor shift in the striping and the landscape islands associated to maximize this lot. You see old landscape island locations here and here being shifted around. So that's happening. And there's some minor modifications to some fire hydrant locations to make sure they're still protected as the restriping occurs. Also with 2 Boston Post Road, there is full access around the building. That is being maintained. It was a comment brought up by the fire marshal, and we proved that a truck can circulate in the case of an emergency, and that is being maintained as well.
Can you describe in some greater detail what actually goes on in the building?
Yep. So we believe we have an inset plan here. So this is the a blow up of what's going inside the building. So I'm just going to trace this. These are the exterior walls of the building. So as you can tell, if you've been in there, it's a typical former retail location. It's a concrete floor and columns, and it's wide open. So they're proposing to stripe and park inside. And obviously, we're maintaining all utilities, gas, water, sanitary, electric, to have a functioning facility. So very, very basic, just going to be interior parking to maximize the capacity of the site. Only openings are being cut in. Correct. Yep. 11 by 27 for delivery to delivery vans.
Right.
Let's see here. As I mentioned, utilities to remain. There are a couple of fire hydrants on site that will be relocated to remain protected in islands. I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but we are still going to maintain the existing pavement boundaries. So we're not creeping any further past the extent of the project now. So it's really, in our eyes, a minor modification of the parking lots. And I will also point out topography as well, that there is a significant rock/retaining wall along this side that is being maintained. And there's also existing landscaping adjacent to the residential users across Malloy that is to remain. If you guys will allow me to jump to street view. I can show you in general what that looks like. So this is the facility here, and this is the existing landscape boundary that will be maintained. And you can see, obviously, from this view here, looking into the site, that there's a large retaining wall along this boundary that we're not proposing to touch, just a modification of the existing parking lots. In addition to that, obviously, with rejiggering of the parking spaces and islands, let me just shift forward. We're proposing to add new landscaping and lighting to comply with your regulations and to provide safety and security for patrons. Same thing, LED, dark sky compliance, no wash outside the property limits to be a nuisance to any adjacent abutter. The stormwater management system, obviously to remain in place, is interconnected with the abutters with a final discharge to Boston Post Road. Again, overall, we're reducing impervious coverage, maintaining drainage discharge points and providing water quality features as well. So that is a pretty simple modification to the existing parking lots. Again, with erosion and sedimentation control during construction, we want to protect the existing system and the city system and not provide any nuisance to adjacent business owners or residents. So we do have an erosion and sedimentation control plan and narrative up on the screen. So that includes things like construction entrances, silt sacks, silt fences, soil stockpile areas, things of that nature until the site is stabilized. Again, the back of the set here shows the exterior elevations provided to the plan. The project architect is on the line if you have specific questions, but overall, in general, this is the front facade. There's new overhead doors placed here and here for access of delivery vans coming in and out of the facility. Overall, this building will, since it's shielded from Boston Post Road with landscaping, you probably won't even notice a difference from the streets. So that's a quick high-level overview from me. I'm happy to pass it to the traffic engineer and architect if you guys want to hear from them, or if you want to, throw questions out. I'm happy. Whatever format works for you.
I don't have any questions at this point. Anybody else? Kevin, Tom, Paul?
No.
I can either go, whatever you want to do.
All right. Well, why don't you ask your question then, if you have one?
Okay. Switch back to SP1 for 48 Boston Post Road, please. The overall site plan. Just want to make sure that I'm interpreting your use of the property and how I believe you guys have been very sensitive to the residential corridor to the south and east.
Sure.
It looks like the employee parking is going to be a buffer on the eastern and southern side of the building. Those are the normal size spaces. So would those generally be drive in once in the day, leave it parked once at night?
Correct. So what I've circled in yellow here is the standard parking spaces, the 20 feet deep by 10 feet wide. So yeah, those would be employee parking spaces. They wouldn't be used for any van delivery spaces. This would be intended to be a 24-hour facility, so the only cars would leave would be at the end of each shift. Everything else would be handled in the other parking spaces. In this location up here, in here, and obviously to Boston Post Road.
Right. Okay. Then, with respect to the over-the-road tractor trailers are going to generally come in on Carson Road because that's the quickest way to the loading dock from 95 off exit 42, correct?
No. Yeah.
So
Correct. If I zoom out here, yes, I believe this route that I'm tracing, yes, they could cut down Carlson or go out to Boston Post Road and come down as well.
right, but in general, they'd come up Carlson because otherwise they have to wait at 2 lights to get into the site, right?
Correct. From a convenience standpoint, Carlson seems to make the most sense. But obviously, if you guys have concerns with Carlson Road and want to divert traffic to Boston Post Road, that's something that, that I'm sure a user would be open to. I know there is a big industrial user with tractor trailers next door that does use Carlson Road. But yeah. They do have that option to go to either entrance.
Oh, I think Carlson Road was meant for truck traffic, and the 20-foot sound barrier should keep a lot of the annoying backup noise from the trucks from hitting the residential neighborhood. So moving to the front of the building along the common access drive between the Guitar Center and Edge Fitness, there's obviously some sort of reciprocal easement agreement on record with that property owner that allows access between the parking facility at 2 Boston Post Road and 48 and vents out to the Post Road?
Yes, I believe that there is. This is the survey. Our property line, just so you're aware, I'm going to just trace it here. Is roughly here. Sorry, this is turned, so north is a little bit different. But yeah, that common driveway in the front is associated with the Guitar Center and Edge Fitness. So yes, there are reciprocal access agreements between these 2 facilities and also 2 and 48 from the access here, cross access easement location, as you can see.
Along with a drainage easement to get to that detention.
Correct. I'll just do a quick highlight for you here. So there's obviously some structures and some piping shown here. It ends up coming here and discharging here. This basin, which is half shown, is straddled by the property line. So it's a common basin used by both facilities before discharge out to Boston Post Road.
Okay, heading back to the proposed site plan SP1.
Yep.
So with the in front of the building, in front of the new canopy, you're showing basically it looks like you're going to have overnight parking in the large van stalls. Then there's some sort of staging area in front of the canopy, and then those vans would circulate around underneath the canopy, back up and be loaded before exiting?
Yes, you are correct. So this is the entrance for vans. They would stage in this area, and then they would be loaded. Let me just change color real quick. They would be, sorry. They would be loaded under the canopy. And again, once they're loaded, they can exit out to Boston Post Road. There is obviously a canopy to have them covered. And there's also, if I zoom in here, there's a bypass lane around as well. So any parked vans would be able to be circumvented around. Obviously, the intention is to not leave any vans in here more than the pickup and drop off. Otherwise, they'll be parked in locations on site or off site.
All right. So the exiting traffic pattern for those point of delivery vehicles, the vans, we'll call them, if they're going local through the secondary network, those vans were most likely making deliveries through the town anyway, correct?
Correct. So yeah, again, this is a 60-minute range of delivery. So they could be going local, or they could be making their way to the the local highway network to maybe go a little bit further out. But the intention is a 60-minute radius. So obviously this is a great location for local deliveries and adjacent towns.
Matthew, did you say?
But if they were
15
heading
minute or 50? Sorry, Kevin. Go ahead.
60.
I thought he said 60.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, 60.
So, if they are accessing 95, again, for convenience, a lot of that might be exiting through Carlson and getting on the highway. If they're trying to get up to Route 34, they'll probably take the first choice would be Racebrook Road, probably,
Right.
headed to 34. But that only gets them to Route 8. But that's a good thing.
Mike, do you want to?
Yeah, for
If you, Mike can jump into
purposes
the
of the
specifics
study,
of their traffic. Yeah, go ahead, Mike. I'll let you kind of elaborate a little bit more.
all right, for the record, Mike Dion with BL Companies. For the traffic study, we looked at it as a worst case scenario. So we wanted to send everybody out to Route 1 before spreading them out. So we didn't have the vans use Carlson Road at all. This way, whatever tenant comes in can see what it's going to be worst case. And we wanted to show what the impact would be to traffic signals on Route 1. So I don't know if you want me to start going through the traffic report, or do you want to keep going with questions from that?
Well, I have a couple more, and then you can go to the traffic report on the
Sure
plan. Basically, 2 Boston Post Road is a parking lot. Some of it covered, some uncovered. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Within the covered parking area, when you demolish the inside finishes, although there aren't a lot within a Sam's Club, are you going to be covering up floor drains and such in case there's oil from, those aren't set up to take like oil separators and stuff like that into the sanitary.
Todd, jump in if you think I'm speaking incorrectly. Todd's our architectural designer. I believe we're just striping the existing floor as it's a pretty wide open area and protecting columns. We wouldn't be covering up anything, and obviously a user would have to provide some sort of scrubbing device to maintain the floor and the condition to make sure that nothing is being tracked outside of the building and into the parking lot and into your drainage system.
Yeah, I think what I was more referring to, Todd, would be that the old sanitary system inside the building goes to the sewer. And it's not set up to handle oil. So when you demo the bathrooms out of the existing building, you might want to cut off the sanitary system.
So there will remain some facilities inside the building, bathrooms for employees. So we can't cut off completely the sanitary system, but we understand your concern with oil being tracked. I don't believe, Todd, there is any existing floor drains that connect directly to the underground system. Todd, are you there? Did we lose Todd?
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to unmute.
Okay.
Any existing system that we're removing a restroom, we will be abandoning and capping the existing service and banning it in place. We're not adding any new any new drains, and if there are drains there, I believe, and I can get back to you on that, that they're being plugged and abandoned.
Okay, well, you can handle that with the building officials. All right, traffic. I'm good up until traffic.
Hang on for 1 second. What is
Okay.
the, how do you expect, I'm sorry, how many employees at any given time during the day?
I don't know that answer to the question. It'll depend on who the eventual tenant will be. I know the landowners are pursuing tenants with 24-hour operations, but I don't have an exact number at this point.
Certainly
bathrooms-
less demand for parking than you would anticipate in a retail setting, right?
A combination of
Right,
both,
and if
I
you
would imagine, yeah.
Right, and if you want to use this as a good segue for Mike Dion to talk about the traffic study, he'll bring up that point. Two big, heavy, big box retail users compared to a warehouse users obviously have a very different traffic demand. So if you want, I'll have Mike kind of give you a summary of that, and then hopefully that'll maybe answer some of the other questions that you haven't said yet.
Where'd he go? Oh, there he is.
Oh, I'm here.
Hey.
Perfect.
Go ahead,
time.
Mike.
Sure. If you let me, can you unshare the screen, Matt, and I'll share my screen.
There you go.
Okay, so this is good that we have Zoom because I'm probably responsible for the size of that package you got. It was quite an extensive traffic study. I think it was almost 500 pages that was sent. So I will give you the Cliff Notes version. We understand again, for the record, Mike Town with BL Companies. I'm the traffic lead. What we have is, as we've been discussing, is 2 and 48 Boston Post Road, and we're looking at it being a warehouse and distribution center. It's the Lowe's site and Sam's Club sites. So for the traffic impact study, we looked at 14 intersections. Again, we wanted to look at the traffic all the way out to the highway to make sure we captured any issues that could be out there. We looked at AM, PM, and midday peak hours. We did a field inventory of all the intersections and area. We took photographs and we verified the roadway geometry and lane arrangements that they're what's shown on the traffic signal plans we got from the department. And we have historical 24-hour traffic counts from the DOT out there as well. So what we did with those traffic volumes we took last year is we projected them to the horizon year, which was 2021. So they're hoping to be operational by next year with this site. And then we reached out to the town planner and tried to see if there was any major traffic generators that could be going in the area. And the only thing there was they told us about I believe a Cumberland Farms up the road coming in. So we included any traffic data from that into our what we call background data. So then we took our generated trips that we're anticipating for this warehouse distribution facility, and we distribute them to the roadway network. And what we do have is this on the screen is just a comparison of if it was an operational Lowe's and a Home Depot there. You can see that the expected trips, especially in the PM peak hour, would be approximately 873 trips. So if we looked at our delivery station generated trips under that, the net trips would be negative for this site. So we didn't want to look at that and analyze that because obviously that's not really what's there. And when we took our traffic counts, the Lowe's and Home Depot weren't there. So what we did with our delivery station is these are the volumes we used in the traffic impact study. Essentially, it's midday and PM peak hour where the traffic's going to be generated for this site. You can see it's about 145 trips in the midday peak and 115 in the PM peak. So those are the volumes we used in the traffic study. But just a comparison to if it was a Lowe's and Home Depot, we're generating quite a bit less traffic.
Yeah, Michael,
so do with all that.
I'm sorry, sir.
Ahead.
Quick question. Why is there such a low generation with a warehouse use in the AM?
What's happening is the client we're talking to has purposely done this, and they're looking at all of their delivery vans leaving the site at between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. and not returning to the site until after 6 p.m. So they purposely tried to take all the traffic out of the peak hours, just so that it's not impacting the, AM commuting public and the PM commuting public.
All right. Thank you.
Sure thing. So then we take all that data and we put it into a program called Synchro, and what it's going to give us is a level of service, which is based on the delay at each intersection. And it assigns a letter grade to each intersection, just like you're in school, with A being the best, F being failure. And in Connecticut, generally, level of service D is acceptable for an intersection. So part of the report is there's a lot of tables with a lot of the output into it. I won't bore everybody with everything. I'll go to the conclusions. And I don't know if you have a chance to look at the report. But what it boils down to is that essentially the roadway network can't accommodate the traffic from the proposed building. There was a site out in West Haven by the highway that did degrade from a level of service D to an E. And what we did at that site is we are looking at some minor timing revisions that we say they can work and improve the intersection back to a D. But that is all subject to approval from OSTA. Both of these locations have an existing OSTA certificate. So any land use change or change in operation, which what we're proposing here, has to go through the Office of State Traffic Administration. So we'll be submitting a package to them for their approval and review. So they'll go through all the traffic and all the plans to make sure that it meets their criteria. So it does, any timing changes we propose, we can't say that they're going to do, but it's just a recommendation, and they'll either accept it or not, or agree to study it a little more. With that, I'll see if you have any questions.
They won't consider your application until you have the local approval.
That's right. And we did go to the police commission yesterday, and they did favorably approve it. So you should be getting something from them soon if you haven't already.
Mike, if I can, were there intersections that got worse from the usage from when Lowe's and Sam's Club were operational to what you expect coming forward? Other than the site in West Haven.
Yeah, we did not look at the traffic when there was Lowe's and the Sam's Club there. So my guess, in my professional opinion, the signals would have operated worse then, because there was a lot more traffic generated from those two developments compared to their warehouse that'll be going in.
So your examination took place in the current conditions with both stores being empty, moving forward.
Yeah, that is correct. Which is why I didn't subtract that volume from any of our analysis. And I just wanted to show you that if there was those buildings there, they generate approximately 4 to 5 times as much traffic as this facility.
Mike, if you had operational facilities there previously, why would you have timing adjustments to the signalization?
That's just how things came out. I mean, I'm just giving you my professional opinion that that's what happened. I couldn't tell you if maybe they went through, DOT might have gone through and changed timings recently, or they haven't looked at them. So they could have been, if I analyzed it with those existing facilities, they could have been E's and F's, and the DOT wouldn't have known without studying them.
Okay.
Paul, could you ask your question again? I'm not sure. I just want to make sure that I understood it correctly.
I was curious as to whether or not they took their calculations based when Sam's Club and Lowe's were operational, and whether any intersections got worse, because there was one in West Haven that the gentleman mentioned. But he quickly explained to me that he did not take the calculations when Lowe's and Sam's Club were operational. His calculations were based upon vacancies for both of those properties right now.
But even given that scenario, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what he's saying is that
Nothing got worse.
there's no, even not including that, that traffic that would have been, that, the proposal doesn't significantly affect traffic as is.
That's correct. That's the way I got it anyhow.
Yeah, that is correct. That's a correct
Okay.
statement.
And the intersection that was affected is on Bull Hill Lane, closer to the 95 intersection.
That is correct, yes. So we recommended some timing improvements. We'll see what the department says. We'll actually have to clear this with West Haven as well. We'll reach out to their local traffic authority and let them know what was going on, and they'll have a chance to weigh in as well.
Okay.
You're talking about at Carlson Road, Mike?
I am actually talking about the on-ramp to 95.
Okay.
At Sawmill Road or?
Yes.
Bull
No,
Hill?
no, the other one, the farthest one. The on-ramp to 95 north.
Oh, okay, on Bull Hill
Talking about
Lane.
further down us.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
so a lot
Near
further
the-
down. We sent our study out pretty far.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. I'm
That's
with
where
you.
the new Nick's is, Oz, that restaurant there.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Yeah.
Okay.
Just further down Bull Hill Lane.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any further questions for the traffic engineer?
No.
Okay, what's next, Matt?
So I'm happy to have Todd kind of walk you through a little bit of the architecture on 48 Boston Post Road. If you guys want to hear some of the details of that, obviously we comply with building setbacks and zoning and all that. But if you want a description of those changes, I can have Todd walk you through that.
Let's do that.
Okay, Todd, do you want me to share the screen or do you have it in front of you?
Sure, why don't you share the screen? It's taking me a minute. to
Okay,
find
perfect.
it.
Yeah. Okay, so 48. All right, Todd, tell me where you want to go.
If you want to start with the floor plan, then we'll go to elevations.
Sure. Floor plan up on the screen.
And so, again, this is a distribution warehouse, the employee entrance, and all the employee functions are at the rear of the building, where all that other parking is. We're providing a break room, locker rooms, small business office. We're maintaining the existing fire sprinkler service, electrical service, and whatnot. There is a small pickup area. It's called the staging area to the right for items that either need to be returned or a customer could I guess come and pick it up. Very low volume of that actually happening. Then you've already talked about the new canopy that we're providing with openings to support it.
The canopies are of material, or are they permanent structures?
It will be a permanent steel structure with a metal panel fascia on it, sloped to drain
Mhm.
to internal drains at the front face, which will then go into storm drainage. I guess if you want to go to the elevations, you can.
Oh, sorry. Oh, getting lost here. Hold on. There you go.
There you go. Okay. So yeah, you see, they slope to the front, and there are internal drains with internal leaders that are picked up on the site civil storm drainage.
That's the facade that faces Boston Post Road?
No, this is the facade this is the east, what,
That faces Carlton Road?
that faces Carlston, yes.
Okay,
It's the new loading area. The facade that faces Boston Post is the upper facade. All we're doing is removing the large Lowe's
yeah, the box on top of the
box in
building.
the front, and they had an existing loading area to the left that will be demolished.
Are you changing building materials on the facade?
Where it's existing split faced and masonry, we're going to match. We're going to infill whatever openings we don't need to match the existing. The only new material we're adding is the metal panel along the canopy.
Will the building be painted or?
We weren't planning on painting it. It's existing. I mean, it's a two-tone split in ground face block right now.
Okay. I mean, it's a material that wasn't meant to be painted. Is that what
No,
you're saying?
you wouldn't really want to. I mean, I guess you could paint the split faced, but it's not really meant to be painted.
Okay.
And then you can see on the rear elevation where we added two small canopies one over the employee entrance and one over the pickup area.
The employee entrance is in the rear of the building, right?
Yes, everything, all vehicular access that's not van is toward the rear, is at the rear of the building.
Okay. All right.
So if you have no questions about this, we can go to 2. I mean, we're doing even less with 2 Boston Post Road. Again, inside, we're literally, there isn't a lot in there now, so we're demoing what is left. Again, keeping all the existing services. We're adding a small restroom in the upper right corner, and that's mainly for convenience. Being the construction type as S2 parking, restrooms aren't required by code. But we're providing them just as a convenience. The outside of this building, we are doing a lot less too. We'll leave the facade mainly alone, just adding the two new entry areas.
So top of the screen there.
That faces Boston Post.
Faces Boston Post Road.
Yes. So again, we're leaving this facade basically alone, stripping any signage off and adding the 2 entrances, two new entrances, all existing exterior doors, exterior loading doors. They all remain.
Okay. All right. Any questions?
I have a question, but it may be more in Matthew's bailiwick. Matthew, it looks like, depending on the eventual tenant, that this project could go forward as either, one could go, 48 Boston Post Road could go forward independently of the parking, the additional parking at 2 Boston Post Road. Is that fair to say?
Correct. They are 2 separate parcels. They are standing alone. This is more of a joint effort to attract a tenant with both facilities and operations, but 48 could stand on its own and 2 Boston Post Road could stand on its own as well. We comply with regulations independently because there's no intention of combining the lots. They will be standalone.
So Ozzy, when we get to if we get to closing it and voting tonight, we should do it incrementally so that they're not tied together. in case they go forward with one or the other?
It's a good question.
Makes sense.
I mean,
And I would say too that Mr. Chairman, just to define the line too, we obviously know and are aware that this is a commercial zone and a warehouse delivery is not allowed on Boston or to Boston Post Road. So
Right.
we'd obviously want that defined as parking only, just so the town is clear and we're clear as well. So there's going to be no mixing and matching going on between facilities.
yeah, I mean, I was going to raise that, just reiterate that, but, you know, clearly, you know, any use of to Boston Post Road to warehouse goods would be a violation of the zoning. In fact, warehouse.
Oz, we lost you.
Oh, he's frozen.
Not flattering loss.
Oz's mouth is open, but nothing's coming out.
We were so close.
Yeah, we really were. If I click on him, will he say something? No.
Todd, when you laid out the bathrooms in 48, it looks like you've got like 12 fixture units for each of the men and women. So someone had asked potential occupancy, that would relate to several hundred employees, right?
We base the fixtures on code minimum. So if you take the area of the warehouse and divide it by warehouse by 500, that's where we come up with our fixture count. We just try to meet the building code. And unfortunately for warehouse, you do end up with quite a few people, though the tenant rarely remotely, any tenant would rarely remotely come close to what the code minimum requires.
Right. So
Right. And I believe, Kevin, you asked this question. Obviously, I don't have a solid number, but obviously 2 vacant parcels, if we can get a business into both of these, there'll be, you know, obviously significant job creation from what is there today.
well, it would be an infinite, you know, when you had the first employee, it'd be an infinite amount. Did anyone else lose video?
Just of Ozzy.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Poor
still
Ozzy.
see you all.
I dropped off. Okay.
No.
I'm assuming
yeah,
we want to give them a few minutes to reappear.
makes sense. Does anyone trying to get him back?
Yeah, I am texting Josh as we speak.
Okay.
You and Ozzy live in the same neighborhood, Jack? You got the same Wi-Fi provider?
Maybe they're doing a sectional thing, but maybe if somebody wants to try to get in contact with Ozzy as well, see if he's trying to maybe call in or get back online.
I don't think I have his number.
I got it.
Okay.
I'm on it. Oz, my man, your mouth is open, but nothing's happening. Are you trying to get back on? Okay, so are you rebooting it? Okay, good. Alrighty. Oh, hold it. I see Wendy now. Yeah, there she is. Hello. Oh. Okay. All right. That would be fine. Bye-bye. Ozzy's going to continue with his phone, I think.
Are you guys there?
Yeah,
There you are.
All right. This is that. I'm sorry. We lost our connection there for a second.
And me and you, something happened.
Well, my IT staff is trying to work out the problem. But in the meantime, I guess
You're
was
no
in the
longer
middle of-
Wendy.
We were talking about, the approvals, potential approvals. I guess, yes, we would, are you there?
Yep.
I
Ozzy's
lost
got
my,
a pretty picture though.
We can hear you.
I lost my picture. You can hear me though, right?
We can
Yeah.
hear you, yes.
Yeah.
So I guess the question was raised, should these applications be considered separately? And I think the answer to that is yes, because, the 2 Boston Post Road, any warehouse use there is prohibited under the regulations. So we'd be approving that just as, off-street, as an off-street parking facility. So, if at some point, if the project never went ahead, our approval would be limited to that extent. I mean, that was the only thing we approved is off-street parking, nothing else, right?
Correct. We're on the same page with you. Yes, they need to be independent and approved separately. I believe, to be clear for the record, for you and for us.
Yeah, I mean, the project you described, entails use of both properties the way you've described it, and those uses that the warehousing use on 48 Boston Post Road and the off-street parking facility on 2 Boston Post Road are both permitted in those respective zones, the way I see it.
Correct.
So I don't know. I mean, I would say that we have to consider the applications separately in terms of, approving or not.
Makes sense.
I would agree.
Yep.
All
Ozzy,
right,
can you flip your phone so it's landscape instead of portrait?
How's that?
Just so we.
I like
It's
it.
pretty good.
New
Now, you
side,
guys-
please.
You guys are
Oh, it's not changing. Okay, never mind. Sorry.
not changing. I'm
Sure.
I
changing.
thought I was gonna fill the whole picture. Sorry.
Yeah, your orientation's locked.
All right.
Yeah. So,
right,
Mr.
well,
Chairman,
anyway,
we don't have any other presentation. Well, we're happy to answer any more questions you guys have. But yeah, we don't have any other new information to add at this time.
Okay. All right, then, any further comments from Kevin, Tom, Paul? Any other questions?
Not at this time. No.
All right, Jack, maybe you can speak to the status of sign-offs from the municipal department heads.
They're all there.
Oh,
Every
there
one of
no
them.
no sign-offs with limitations of any kind?
The only thing that I think was asked to be added was some fire lanes by the fire marshal, which I know Matt and Jamie have been in contact about, and he gave his signature yesterday because he's very confident that they know what needs to be on, and before anything gets finalized, they're on the same page.
All right, so the municipal department heads either have or will sign off right on the site plan, correct?
Already have, and it's everything is there.
Okay, the most recent approval was by the police chief, right?
Yep, I drove down there today and got his Chief Cagney's signature.
And he had no concerns specifically. Okay, all right. Any
Did we have to notify West Haven? I mean, there's really just changes to there's no significant changes here. So we didn't have to notify West Haven or the, what is that interdepartmental agency?
We did notify them of the zone change, if that's what you're asking. Yep.
Yeah, all right.
Well, on a site plan application, are we're under no compulsion to
No.
notify the regional planning agencies, right?
No, not for a site plan.
Right.
I mean, that would be if we're a zone change or, that type of thing.
And we did that before. I remember doing it. Yep.
Right.
And actually, the only direct connection to West Haven is being shut off with a gate.
Fence.
The Malloy access is turned into emergency.
Right.
I can't.
And they're
Still
going to
trying
get
to work out my.
signalization in the traffic study.
Correct. Yeah. So obviously OSA would follow, and if we have approval from you guys, then the building permit would follow as well. Obviously, there's kind of a chicken before the egg with some of these things, as OSTA needs your approval before they can sign off. But it should give you some solace that the police commission signed off. The traffic study obviously showed very little impact, and then obviously OSTA will be the end all be all in terms of signing off and making recommendations to the state roads.
Okay. What about Jack? What about any bonding requirements?
Bonds, I would have to go over with the town engineer. I know Paul always did that. And we can kind of come up with a figure. I know it's based off of the site work and everything. So that's something that I can get working on right away.
So any approval we give is conditioned on the applicant submitting a bond in an agreed upon amount.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. We would be okay with that, obviously, working in consultation with Jack and the town engineer.
All right. I mean, those details, I don't think we ordinarily work out those details when we vote on a plan, but those are handled administratively by the
Paul had always told me it was between him and the engineer figuring out
and
the
town engineer. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, I don't know. I personally don't see any reason to hold this over to our next meeting. I'm not sure that there's any further information I need in order to decide the application. I don't know if you guys feel the same way.
I don't see the need to hold it over. I mean, they're basically doing very little to the buildings in terms of changes. The traffic study, although very voluminous, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out it's going to be less traffic than it was within the last couple of years. I mean, obviously the last, after it's vacant, it's something different, but this is going to be less than Sam's and Lowe's, which operated in tandem for years.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be less traffic than what we already approved.
Yes.
In terms of Lowe's and Sam's, so.
Right.
I agree.
And when we were considering the zone change, we, I'd mentioned we had expressed a concern for the residential neighborhood. And I think that the orientation of the uses in the site plan and the sound features and the traffic patterns all, show sensitivity to our neighbors.
Yeah, they put in the extra buffers. Plus, there's a significant buffer there. Anyhow, it's 200 and change. About 270 square linear feet.
Right. We're only 50 feet is required.
Yeah.
No, and the other thing is the drainage. The site drainage report. I mean, it seems like there's very little changing. The effect of some, there are some effective, suggestions for, improving the site drainage. So, I mean, nothing major, but at least, more than maintaining the status quo.
Right. As Jack mentioned, obviously the town engineer signed off. And just to give you another belt and suspenders, because the eventual system connects to Boston Post Road, which is a state maintained facility, as part of the OSTA application, they also review our drainage calculations. So that's another, regulatory hurdle that we have to get through after local as well. So that is considered.
Well, it strikes me as a good project for the town, and I hope the project can be done in totality, including both 48 and 2 Boston Post Road, that they're not separated in some fashion. But if they are, I think the town is protected. If either of those, well, if 48 were developed on its own, I don't see how. I mean, nobody would develop 2 Boston Post Road as strictly an off-street parking facility in conjunction with something else. But anyway, and I hope it goes forward as a project that includes parcels, All right. Did Kevin, Tom, you think we beat this sufficiently to death? Or?
Yes.
All right. All right. Then if that's the case, hopefully one of the commissioners is prepared to make a motion to approve.
I'll approve the site plan application, the architectural standard supplement submitted by Orange Post Associates for the property known as 48 Boston Post Road. The existing building will mostly remain with reconfiguration to the parking layout, removal of asphalt, slight alterations to the existing structures, and resurfacing. Primary use will be warehouse storage and shipping of goods.
All right, so that's item number 5 on our agenda, the site plan application for 48 Boston Post Road. Paul's moved to approve the site plan application, subject to posting of a bond.
I'll include that.
In an amount to be determined by the zoning enforcement officer and the town engineer. That's the motion. That's the motion. Do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
All right, it's been seconded by, I'm sorry, not on my screen, but
Tommy.
Tom. Okay. Any further discussion?
No.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 That's everybody? Okay. All right, so that's approved. Item number 6 on the agenda. Paul, you prepared to make a motion on that one?
Sure. I'll also move that we approve the site plan application architectural standard supplement submitted for 2 Boston Post Road Associates LLC and R&R Orange Ventures LLC for the property known as 2 Boston Post Road to alter existing lighting, utilities, and landscaping of property. The primary use will be off-street parking and vehicle storage.
Okay.
And caveat with a bond to be in the discretion of the zoning enforcement officer.
All right, and I take it your motion includes the lighting supplement to the site plan application.
Was there one that was submitted with the light plan, with the, I saw the architectural.
There was one submitted, but I failed to mention it when we talked about the previous one, but.
Then I'll amend the motion for that, to incorporate that as well.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve the site plan, architectural standard supplement, and the lighting supplement for 2 Boston Post Road as submitted, subject to bond in an amount to be set and approved by the zoning enforcement officer and the town engineer. Do we have a second on the motion?
Second.
All right, it's been seconded. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. And I guess we ought to, just for clarity's sake, Paul, maybe you want to move that we approve the site plan, the lighting supplement.
For 48 as well?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'll amend, or maybe we should re-vote on, I don't know.
Yeah, let's re-vote on it.
That we approve, should I just include that the motion that I had previously made include the lighting supplement for 48?
a motion to approve the lighting supplement for
Also,
48.
So moved.
Okay, and we have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, so the motion's been made to include approval of the lighting supplement for 48, submitted for 48 Boston Post Road. It's been seconded. Do we have any further discussion on the motion?
No.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All right, Tammy's still there, right?
Yes.
Okay, I don't see you on my screen,
Oh,
you
no.
or Jack.
Oh, I'm here.
We're both here.
All right,
Yep,
good.
Jack's here too. We're
All
here.
right. All right, so I think that takes care of it, Jack, right? Are we missing anything here?
No, with the architectural supplement, lighting supplement, site plan, I think you covered all your bases.
All right, so congratulations. Look forward to the project going forward.
Go find a tenant.
Find a tenant. Yeah, nail that down like tomorrow.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate your time, and Jack, your help with getting around with every department head, and obviously being very accommodating with this pandemic. I appreciate it. I know it's been difficult for everybody, and we look forward to working in town, and hope everybody stays healthy and sane for the duration of this.
You guys.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Same to you guys
Thanks,
too.
guys.
Thank you,
Thank you
guys.
very much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Have a good night.
So that concludes our agenda for tonight. At this point, somebody
Move to
prepare to
adjourn.
make a motion. Paul moves to adjourn.
Yes.
Second.
I think that was Tom. I can't tell. All
Yes.
It may have been me.
No, it was
right, we
Judy.
have a motion to adjourn. It's been seconded. All those in favor?
Good night, guys.
Aye.
All right, good night.